Hey y'all, it's your girl Erin, and welcome to another episode of Left Tube Tonight, the show where subcounts don't matter, but liberation of the working class does. And you might have seen recently I uploaded a video explaining my coming out and stuff. So yeah, there's been a lot going on in my life, and it's been pretty hectic. That's why it's taken me a while to get to making one of these. On to my recommendations. First up, I wanted to share NonCompete's video, Why Are You Working 8 Hours Per Day? American put so much work into the production of this video and it really pays off. It's the kind of video you could share with anyone to give them second thoughts about their views on work potentially. So I think you should definitely check that out. And then you might remember me mentioning before that Luna from Luna Oi and American Johnson from NonCompete were building a sidecar for their motorbike a while back. And so Luna uploaded a video called Driving a Sidecar Motorcycle in Vietnam, Project Che, where she and American go on a road trip share their motorbike sidecar. And it's a really cool video with some wholesome content and some really beautiful scenery. So I recommend you go and have a look at that as well. Then I wanted to share some gaming related content, starting with Curio's video called Bioshock 2 is Incredible, Don't At Me. Well, you may know that it's actually kind of trash, but Curio argues that when you know it's trash, but you just enjoying it for the hilarity of its wrongness, there might be some insights you could gain from that too. The Bioshock storytellers are basically just centrists. Go check that out. Then Michael Saba released a video called How NieR Automata Tells the Ultimate Humanist Fable, and they attempt to explain why they think NieR Automata is a masterpiece of storytelling through its exploration and deconstruction of human consciousness. And I found that video to be really interesting, and it made me want to play the game. So you should check that out as well if you're into gaming. And next I wanted to recommend the channel SabreKitty, who is a really awesome leftist gamer and is also on Twitch. And I'll drop a link in the description to their Twitch as well, but you can catch their Kotor 2 Blaster Jedi build playthrough on YouTube. I really enjoyed those games. And while we're talking about playthroughs, you might also be interested in some of the gaming streams I've been doing lately. So for example, I started a They Are Billions playthrough and have so far survived to day 50. So yeah, and check out my channel for when I'm online. My plan is to stream sort of Mondays to Thursdays, 10 p.m. GMT plus 2, so 8 p.m. GMT, if I can, as regularly as possible. So yeah, it would be cool if you are online then, come hang out. Then moving on to some more of an SJW direction, and I say that in the best possible way. Riley J. Dennis uploaded a great video discussing the question, what does being offended even mean? Riley has a really nuanced take and really hits the nail on the head at how right-wing people are super hypocritical when it comes to being offended. Riley also uploaded a video about how trans rights are under attack in the US, where she describes some of the things that the Trump administration has been doing to try and undermine transgender people's legal protections and rights there. Then I wanted to share the video called Bisexual, Lesbians and Trans Privilege by Gwen Nofia, talking about identities and how human experiences are way more complicated than simple rules about who can use what word. Because, words have multiple definitions, and Gwen also adds some important nuance to the male privilege discussion and how people often confuse male privilege with male passing privilege, and saying that somebody who has only had male passing privilege has had male privilege is actually misgendering them and erasing a lot of the struggles they went through. I think it's super helpful to have an appropriate amount of nuance when it comes to things like gender and sexuality, because people see them as such a personal thing. And in my opinion, sexuality and attraction has very little to do with gender overall, and it's only when gender is mixed up with a whole lot of other things that aren't gender in a person's mind that saying that you're attracted to a specific gender can actually make sense. But I think we need to untangle gender from things that aren't gender, and we're going to have to adjust our definitions and words to more accurately describe our experiences. I'm hoping to talk to you in the future about my framework for gender called genre gender. But basically, I think gender should be based on free association Anyway, getting back to my recommendations, another of Gwen's videos I think everyone should watch is her video about the trans panel at MythCon 2018, where Gwen goes over pretty much all of the panel that featured Theron Meyer, Angel, Bonilla, and Blair, and there was a lot of really interesting topics, and Gwen had a lot of hot takes on the things that came up on the panel. So if you're interested in the discussions around trans politics, then that's going to be really interesting to you. Next up, LackingSaint investigates the claims that 90s kids' cartoons are secretly LGBT propaganda trying to brainwash the kids. Check out the video to find out if Jack can find even a single instance of a positive queer representation in 90s cartoons. And then I also wanted to share a video from Sexplanations, which is basically talking about how dangerous an abstinence-only education can be, how it's not actually even a sex education, and if you don't already know why it's a bad idea, then I suggest you check out that video. Then Karen and a white man behind a desk talk about how a lack of definition of consent in the New Zealand law is becoming a huge problem. The ambiguity ends up being used to let people with a load of privilege off the hook, which suppresses the reporting of crimes and perpetuates rape culture. A really great look into that topic, I think, so check that out if you're interested. And then Sarah Z talks about J.K. Rowling and authorial intent, and why fully subscribing to authorial intent can be harmful in some circumstances, giving examples of that with J.K. Rowling's relationship with her readers and her connection to authorial intent. Okay, so now for some of the videos you have probably already seen, I'm going to cover some of the new videos by LeftTube's most popular creatives. First up, PhilosophyTube asked the eternal question of whether philosophy is actually just a bunch of white guys jerking off. In a very funny, in my opinion anyway, video about whether we should separate famous white philosophers from their very problematic views, delivered in a humorous way, I really enjoyed it. Then Mexi released a video on reclaiming radical creativity, how as the world gets more and more dystopian, it becomes more and more important for the people on the left to make that a good place to be, so that people will want to join us in fighting for a better world. I love the point about critical connections being more important than critical mass, and how a shared vision can help us have united praxis instead of being easily swept into being reactionary. Hashtag we are the adults now. Next up, Thought Slime talks about civility, and how when you cut yourself off from fighting fire with fire, you end up doing nothing but capitulating. Civility aims to hide divisions that sometimes need to be exposed so that we can deal with the issues that are underlying them. Next up, Peter Coffin released a very important documentary about wealth and hoarding it, and how considering someone with a lot of money to be successful doesn't really make sense. So why do we so often hear people saying that they've succeeded when they make it big financially? A very entertaining video that I highly recommend. Another great video to watch is NonCompete, who I talked about earlier's interview, with one of the founders of the first internationalist commune of Rojava, and discusses their society and democratic confederalism, which they're implementing there. And then moving on to the topic of global climate, Sika uploaded a video talking about what happens when an island completely disappears, showing some examples of where this is already starting to happen. Next up, I wanted to share a video by the channel Earthstrike. Earthstrike is a movement that's aiming to get a global general strike going sometime in 2019. So it's good that you start talking about it, and look out for future dates. There's going to be a few next year. And then on a more positive note than the eco-apocalypse, the Wrong Boys of Seriously Wrong talk about an ecotopia from a timeline where the planet did get saved. They talk about the real possibility for us to try and minimize the effects of our climate disruption, and for us to work towards that rather than giving up, which kind of is just a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then the last video I wanted to share was a video by the channel Iris called White Women with Autism Want You to Know. And I thought it was a pretty cool video. People tend to frame autism as a kid-specific phenomenon. So it's cool to see adults, autistic people, describing their own experiences. And I think everyone should hear more about what it's like to be autistic so that you can better handle people being autistic around you. And then that's pretty much all I have for today. I'll put a link in the description to a playlist with all of these videos As well, I'll also link to them individually. And I'm going to drop a link to my Patreon in the description in case you're feeling super generous. But what would be even more helpful than monetary support would be exposure. So really would like it if you shared this with all your friends, providing that it is something you feel worth watching. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all around. Bye!